Here are a few tips you might consider if you're serving as a reader in your branch church. First, let's talk about lists and how to name them. We'll go to the list menu here, and sometimes it's helpful to name your list in a numerical way, using the year, the month, and the date, so that it appears in order within your list menu here. And we have the ability to sort. If you click this icon in the top right corner, you can sort by name, label, or by most recent. So what you have here is you've got in numerical order with the lowest number at the top, and it goes down. So you've got 2017 at the top down to 2018, and then it gets into your alphabetical order lists down here. So that might be a helpful way for you to name your list. Obviously, it is most helpful to have your most recent list appear at the top, whatever you're working on. So the way to do that is to click Sort by Most Recent. And what that will do is show you this date here in the right corner is always visible. And that date tells you the last date on which a list was modified. Not when it was created, but when it was modified. So yes, it's true, I've been working in this list here, 2017 Love Thy Neighbor Wednesday readings. And so that's what's coming up at the top. So keep that in mind to sort by most recent, and that will always have your most recent list that you've last edited and been working in at the top of your list. Okay, so next we can get into labels. What is a label? In previous versions of Concord, you might have used folders to categorize your readings and have a folder for Wednesday readings and have a folder for Sunday services. And then you put your notebooks or your files in those folders in order to organize your work. Well, we don't have folders in this new Concord, but we do have labels, and labels can be thought of as a folder. So it's basically a category in which you can save your list to, and you can sort by it and all of that. So as a reader, it might be helpful to have labels such as Sunday services or Wednesday meetings or anything like that. So when you're creating a new list, you can just type in your list name in however format you want. This is just a suggestion. There's no, right way to do this. These are just some tips that might be helpful. And automatically, your list is not given a label. So when you click this drop-down menu, if you want to give it a label, I've already created these 3 labels: annotations, Sunday service, and Wednesday readings. You can create a new label by clicking Add New Label and then type in whatever you'd like it to be. If Wednesday readings is too long of a label for you and you're just wanted to put one word to it, just put Wednesday. That's fine, and that'll work just fine. We'll get to numbers in a second. Numbers, you can turn it on here if you like. Typically, if you're a reader, you would use it by book, so that all of your Bible citations are numbered in order sequentially, and then all of your science and health citations are numbered order. So you can do that right away if you like, and then just click Save, and then you're ready to go. So you've got a list here, and sometimes what some readers like to do is they like to categorize or give headers, to the different sections of their document. So for example, you might add text and you might say hymns, and then click Save. And so that kind of gives you, that's a text or like a list level text. And so it can act as a section header. We don't have section headers in this version yet. It's something we're considering, but this might be a helpful thing. And so you can do the same thing for the Bible and then for science and health. That way you can easily sort of drag and drop your citations right where they need to be, and it gives you some visual order and distinction of things. So for example, as I'm reading along in the Bible and I have a story that I'd like to put into my list here, I'll just highlight that and I can drag it on over under the Bible header and put it right there. Similarly in science and health, as I'm searching here in my search results, and that's exactly, the citation I want, no need to edit it or open it in the book text, just do a right click, copy to list, and I'll copy it to my God is Life list here, which is open, and it automatically puts it at the bottom of the list, and That's right where I want it because that's my science and health category. But as I go along, and I just add to this list or open up the book text and add to this citation like that, I can drag it and put it in the exact location from the citation builder here. So I can put it at the top of my science and health citations. Or if you were to just have right-clicked, add to the list, it's going to go to the bottom. So just keep that in mind there. So we've just gone over how to add section headers, if that's helpful for you. And you'll notice that the marker numbers are automatically appearing because when we created this list, and we can get to that, how to edit your list by double-clicking on the title of the list. It gets you to that edit mode where all these options appear. Or I could have gone to the burger menu on the right, go to list options and click edit list. It takes me to the same place. And because we had selected numbers by book, we already have marker numbers by book. You see number 1 here is because 1 Bible citation, then number 1 starts again with the first science and health citation. So that's helpful. Now, if you hadn't done the numbers right away, that's okay. I'll show you an example. Here's a list I have of readings, and there are no marker numbers yet associated with these citations. So that's easy. All I need to do is go in here, double-click on my list name, and then click numbers, and then by book. There's another video that tells you what the on option is, and so go ahead and check out that video in the knowledge base for that tip here. But here's by book, and then click save. And because the hymnal is a separate book, we've got the hymns as 1, 2, 3 at the top, Bible and science and health. Now some readers I've seen, they like to put the hymns in the order in which they're going to appear in the service. Makes complete sense. But we're all, we all approach this a little differently, so that's fine. So you could drag and drop your second hymn to below your Wednesday readings if you like, and then your third hymn down here below the second hymn. So whatever makes sense to you, but you'll notice that those numberings, it's 2 because it's the second citation from the hymnal. So that's what it means to number by book. Okay, so that gives you that idea. Now, as you are working with your readings, obviously you've added a bunch of citations to your list, but now you need to make sure that they work in the order in which they appear. So obviously this isn't as helpful when they're just the citation. Certainly you could click on the citation, expand each one at a time, open it in the book text, but really simply with one click, you can click on this expand icon in the top right corner. And by clicking expand, it opens up all of the full text of each citation with the marker numbers. And as you rearrange the order of the citations, the marker numbers will automatically refresh to match that order. So here I'm going to bring up marker 4 and bring it above this Matthew citation. And notice that green bar there, that shows you when I release my mouse, that's where that citation is going to land. So it's kind of a placeholder, a visual indicator of where that citation is going to go. So as you're reading along, you can just simply click on the 9-dot icon, drag and drop the citation to where you need it to go, and there it is. And you see that the citation marker numbers are automatically refreshing with every change you make. You'll also notice in this expanded view of the citations that we have word counts per citation. This is a big help to some readers because usually as a reader you know how many words you can read in 20 to 25 to 30 minutes, whatever works for your branch church and your service. You can gauge yourself that way. So we don't have word count by book yet, but we are hoping to add that at some future time. Right now we have word count by citation, and then we have a total word count here in the bottom right at the bottom of your list. So that gives you an idea of, and it's helpful to, obviously read through, see what your pace is and your flow, and time yourself. But you're a reader and you already know that. So anyway, just letting you know that we've got word count per citation here in the expanded view. If you collapse back down to citation only, you'll notice that the word counts are not visible. So it's only visible when you actually expand the citation. Okay, fantastic. Now, there's a new feature, and it's called annotations. But and an annotation essentially is a comment that is associated with a specific citation, and it's a comment that you can add. So, for example, if I know that I want to start my readings with this citation, I can make a note to myself to not change it if I want to. I can click the pencil, or I can double click anywhere in the citation line there, and I can say, this is my opener, and click save. And you can have a whole slew of comments. It doesn't have to just be a single word or a single line. Maybe you have lists of study citations, and you've imported a ton of work in there, and you use it as a way to write notes to yourself, like you might in your printed book, in the margin of your printed book. So just think of it that way. There's infinite ways to use this, and there's a whole different video of how to use annotations, so you might want to check that video out. But for a reader's purposes, you might use it something like this and click save. And now when you rearrange that citation, that comment is associated with that citation, so it moves and travels with it when you rearrange the order. So that's a little note to yourself there. But in maybe more substantial ways of how this is helpful, what you'll notice is every time you add a citation to your list, it will be underlined in the book text in the middle. So you see that a lot of my citations here are underlined, and that's because I have included this citation in one of my lists. It may not be readings, but it's something. So for example, here, I'll click on this icon, this little highlighter with the 3. And that tells me that that citation is included in 3 of my saved lists. It tells me what the citation is and which list it belongs to. So for example, this citation was included in my October 18th, 2017 readings on supply. So that tells you right away where that's located. Now, after 3 years of readings, and even less than that, even a few months of Sunday services and Wednesday nights, this is such a great tool, and one that hasn't been implemented before in previous versions of Concord, except for maybe the DOS version of Concord. And that is that you can now tell, as a first reader, when the last time you used that citation was. So you can say, oh, I used this citation last week. I maybe I can find a similar citation and use a different one in this week's readings. So this is such a great tool in order to have as a first reader. You can use it if you make a list, not only for your Wednesday readings, which may contain your hymns, your Bible citations, and your science and health citations, but if you do maybe Sundays as well. Let's see if I've got one here. Right, so here's Unreality for, oh no, I don't have hymns in that one yet, but it's the reality one that I'm looking for. Here we go. Okay, so I've got hymns, and as you are, searching the hymnal for appropriate hymns for your service, and you come along some, you can tell, see, here's, for example, hymn 7. It's underlined, so I know it's in some of my lists, and there's a number 2, so I know that it's in 2 of my lists, and if I open it up, I can tell that I used this hymn on these 2 days. So it's sort of like a database. It tells you exactly how often you used this hymn and when you last used it, so that it could give just an insight to that. So hymns is a great way to use that. And I should say that this is automatically done. There's nothing you have to do specially to make this appear. As soon as you save a citation, whether it's a hymn or a Bible citation, science and health citation, to any of your lists, you don't have to have an annotation to it. You don't have to have a citation number to it. The minute it goes in your list here on the right, it will be underlined in the book text. And this little icon, this little highlighter icon with a number will appear counting the number of lists in which this citation is contained. And then you have the option, when you see that, to open it up and say, oh, okay, this is where it is. And if you've saved your list with a date, it's really easy to say and to tell when the last time it was you used that citation. So that's why one tip might be to name your list with a date in the title so that you can easily tell right away what it is. Again, just a suggestion. Everyone has their own style, but in case it's helpful, we wanted to share that with you. So we've gone over how this can be helpful for hymns. And so as you are developing your Sunday service, this Luke citation was the scriptural, and this Matthew citation could be the benediction in this example. What you could do also is put an annotation, just a note to yourself that this was used as a scriptural, and click Save. And then on this citation, you could give this the little note that it was used as the benediction. So that, 2 months from now, 2 weeks from now, when you're just kind of scrolling along, maybe you've got a different list open, you're scrolling along in your readings and you're doing a search for something else or whatever it is, you can see that it's underlined and there's a highlighter, so you're going to click on that and you say, oh, okay, that was used on the reality lesson, and I wonder what that annotation says. Now, this little icon tells you that there's an annotation with this citation, or a comment that you made in this list about that citation. So clicking on that icon opens up what your annotation is, and it says benediction. Oh, okay, well, Matthew 28, 19, and 20, that was my benediction for that lesson. So, and if you wanted to, you could click on it, open up that lesson, and see it right there. But after a while, it might be helpful for you to see when you use that as a benediction, or when you use that as a scriptural. I can say that in Genesis 1, I've got some things here. So we've got 8 here, and what does this tell me? This tells me that 8 of my lists contain Genesis 1:1, and here's one. I've got a whole list that's called benedictions, so that tells me right away that was used in my list called benedictions. But if I had a Sunday service, here's one right here, and this will open up the list for me and tell me where it is and maybe how it was used. So if it was in the lesson, or if it was a scriptural, or if it was a benediction, all of this is so helpful and is such a wonderful tool to help readers develop their readings and all of that. So again, this is a unique feature that was not included in some previous versions, except for maybe DOS, and that's that. So a couple other things. This is already a long video, but a couple other things. Thanks for staying with me. Is how to send readings to members of your church. We get this all the time from first readers, and so the way to do it in this version of Concord is a little different. And this is something. Don't worry, we're continuing to work on it. So just be mindful of that. But the way to do it right now, because you can't select all of these and copy them like you could in 2.1, the best way is to go to the burger menu and click Print Preview. Now it opens your print preview, and you can select in settings if you want to print it in book format, free-flowing, or citation only. Now, book format will have your line numbers, your verse numbers, and your marginal headings. Free-flowing doesn't have that. There's an example of what that looks like. But mostly we hear from people, they're sending them in free-flowing or book format. So let's just say book format for now. And click on export. Now you can click print if you actually want to print it. You might even have the ability, but the best way, so that's if you're printing it and giving it to somebody as a hard copy. If you're emailing it to someone, click on this text icon next to export. And what happens is you have down here a downloaded file that's just appeared. And what it is it's a TXT file or a text file. And from here, you can, select all, and you can copy and paste it into a Word document, and then you'll be all set. So that's one way you might need to do a little formatting, and it's a work in progress, but that's the way to do it if you're sending readings to somebody who's requested them from you. One other newer feature that we have here is searching Mrs. Eddy's hymns. We get a request for that sometimes. So one way to do it is to just type in Eddie, Mary Baker Eddy, anything, obviously her name, Mary Baker Eddy, or Eddie will be fine. And then if you press enter and you go to the hymnal, you'll see all of Mrs. Eddy's hymns right there. So by clicking on one, it'll bring up the communion hymn, and so that's one way to open up all of the hymns of Mrs. Eddy's with Mrs. Eddy's words. So those are some tips for readers out there, and feel free to be in touch if you have any more questions.